Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I have a fun card where I was kind of looking around wondering if I would start anything Christmas, but I haven't really purchased anything Christmassy. I don't really have very many Christmas dies or stamps or anything specific, so I am going to make my own. As per, you can do a really good job using exactly what you have. I'll let you be the judge of it, and you can let me know in the comment section down below if you've watched through to the end of this video what you thought. But I'm starting off just using some circle dies. These are the Hero Arts Infinity circle dies, but of course any are going to be just fine. And even if you don't have dies, you can probably trace around the outside of something and get 3 different sized circles. I'm going to use a tiny little bit of grey ink. This is just the leftover ink on a finger dauber, and go around the outside of my 3 circles, which is going to make a snowman. I have a kind of smaller one for the head, and then a bit bigger. I think it's 2 sizes bigger in the infinity circles, and then 1 size bigger for the bottom layer. And that was just cut out of some white ovals, some of the insides of frames that I had kept. Now I'm just going to freehand cut my snowman's hat, and just from another piece of scrap paper, I am kind of cutting the rough shape with my big long bladed scissors, and then just adding in a couple of notches, and this is going to create his hat. Then I'm going to round off the top corners of his hat, and then probably cut those sides down just a little bit, and this is going to be my snowman hat. He does not have to be fancy. I feel like sometimes we get caught up in kind of buying things that make it easily for us, or that cut it out, or we don't think we can do it, but everything on this snowman is completely doable. I think very, very easy. I was really proud of how he turned out. I thought he was pretty cute, and you wouldn't know that I just kind of put him together myself. So anyway, I've got the hat, and then I have, this is a glaze pen, but any kind of black marker, black pen is going to work. All I'm doing is adding some little dots for his mouth, and then I added some little enamel dots for his eyes, just so that they were a little bit bigger. You could also use some Nuvo drops or something like that would work as well. And then this was a piece left over from my project the other day. You've already seen this video making the like using the ink blocking technique, and then I'm just cutting out literally a little triangle, and this is going to become the carrot for his nose. I'm kind of cutting a triangle and rounding the ends to it. This is tiny, but I'm going to add some little pencil marks kind of coming in from both sides, and this will just, I guess, maybe make it look a bit more like a little carrot. Again, this isn't necessary. You could just cut out the little triangle, and I rounded the ends, and then I'm going to just show you what it looks like up on this little piece of paper. It's kind of hard to focus. It's so little, but I did decide that I was going to be popping it up on a tiny little corner of foam there. So I cut that little piece of foam, popped it behind his nose, and then his nose is going to sit right in the middle. He's a pretty happy little snowman. And then I decided his hat needed just trimming up a little bit more. It was a little bit too long on each side, but we're looking good so far. Then I'm going to pop up one side of his body so it goes onto that bottom piece, and then his head is just going to sit nicely with some glue down there. I didn't want to add too much dimension to this card. You could definitely kind of go for gold, but I knew that I would have to be posting this one, so I am going to make sure I don't use too much. A little bit is fine, but not too much. So here's my snowman. He's slowly coming together, but we've still got a fair few pieces to add to him. These are all optional. Of course, you could do some of these, or just kind of make your own kind of snowman. You could give him clothes. I'm going pretty traditional for this wee guy. Then to add buttons to his front, I did start off having them rounded like this, and I didn't like them at all at the time, so I'm going to shift them over and put them straight down the middle. But I must admit, when I'm editing this video and doing the voiceover, I kind of like them when they were curved, but either they are now at the front, which is just fine. Now here come the fun pieces. So I didn't really have any ribbon that was suitable, but I did have this very, very thick, wide ribbon, and I was going to use the red, but I kind of like the little bit on the side, so I just ended up cutting a little piece off. And because I don't want it to fray, I'm going to take a lighter. This is my craft lighter. It's the only reason I have one. for doing the ends of ribbons and things, just so that they don't keep fraying and they're nice and sealed. So I have a little scarf for him, and I'm just kind of checking that it's about the right size, and I really like that pattern. It kind of worked out well. I am going to put a little V or a little notch in the end, a little banner or flag, whatever you'd like to call it, just in the ends of his little scarf, and see if I like that. And I did like it, so I'm going to do it to the other end, and then I'm just going to run the flame over them again so that they don't unravel at all, just very, very quickly for 1 second, so that it seals all the edges and it's not going to fray away. Then I'm going to use a little bit of, this is Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish inside this glue bottle, and this is a really strong glue, and this is one of the reasons why I love this glue, is that I can rely on it when I'm gluing together things like this, where I'm using fabric and mixed media and all those sorts of things. So I'm going to run a piece of glue along here, and then just until this sets, instead of holding it, I'm actually going to pop a pair of reverse tweezers in, and that will hold it really nicely. I was kind of making sure that it didn't cover up his smile too much, but I wanted it obviously to go around his neck. Then I found these couple of little branch dies. Now I have had these forever. I'm going to take another piece of that little scrap white paper there and run this through my die cutting machine. Then all I'm going to do is take the one of the brown ones and use some vintage photo distress oxide ink, but you could just cut them out of brown cardstock, that would be fine, or use any inks or any alcohol markers or anything at all. I added the vintage photo, and then I dotted over the black finger dauber just to make them a little bit darker, and then these are his gorgeous little arms. Now I'm going to put all of this aside and then work on the rest of the card. The snowman is definitely kind of the main attraction of this card today, but I do want to add a little bit more to the background, and I'm just going to cut these myself. I know that there are lots of dies and things that do this, but using a pair of long bladed scissors is what I recommend, and you get a really nice smooth long cut doing this. Then, just because there's a whole lot of white in the background when you're doing snow and things, I'm going to add a little bit of, this is actually the tumbled glass finger dauber, but I don't re-ink it at all. I'm just adding that tiny little bit of blue there just to the edge. Then I have this powder, this embossing powder called Puff Powder, white puff powder. It's from Wow. So I have added some VersaMark sticky embossing ink, and I am adding the puff powder over top. Honestly, not that fantastic. Neither here nor there. This has been in my stash for a long time. I purchased it, and it does kind of, it adds texture. I wouldn't say it adds puff at all. Perhaps a little bit of texture. It would be just as fun to add in some, there's lots of like snow markers. The Marvy snow marker is a good one, and or even some embossing paste, and kind of pop that along the bottom. Lots of different ways, and you don't even have to do that at all. You could even just run your front panel through an embossing folder, a snow embossing folder, or some dots or something. Anything is going to work here, but I have my little layers there at the back, and then I'm using that same blue finger dauber just to add some kind of clouds into the sky, and just random little blue spots are going to work perfect for the clouds. Now here is where I'm going to create a tree to go in the background as well. This is the Tim Holtz Woodlands dies. There are 2 that come in a pack, and there is a specific reason why I like these ones. When I look at purchasing dies, I like to know that I can adjust these and make these however I want them. I want to know that I can do more than just kind of the one die cut as it kind of comes. Now I must admit I had one plan here, and that's why I cut it directly out of the middle of that piece of paper there, but my plans change as I am card making, and I just tend to go with it. I die cut out 3 of these trees, and they are gorgeous, and I am going to just use my finger daubers. Again, I am sometimes too, I'd like to call it lazy, but I'll call it efficient to get out all of my ink pads and everything, so I often just use my finger daubers to color things without getting out any ink pads, and I just use the residual ink that is left on them. It is a bit of a risky game because you're not quite sure with the inks, but I can pretty much tell. This one here was last used in Rustic Wilderness. Give or take, I know it looks like I have a lot of finger daubers there, and I probably need to have a good clean out, but in general, if you're going to use finger daubers, I suggest having a 2 for each one, kind of one for the lights and one for the darks of each kind of color family. And then I just kind of scrub it off on a spare piece of scrap paper before I use it to make sure that it hasn't got too much residual color on there. And then you're good to go. Sometimes if I have lost one or I haven't put it back right, then I'll grab another one out of my drawer, and that's how I usually end up with a few more. I do need to have a little clean out because they don't last forever. They do last for a really long time, but as with anything, they don't last forever. Then once I have laid up all these 3 trees, and I am offsetting them just ever so slightly so that it almost looks like snow, you can kind of just see that little peak of white, which I was trying for. And then this is where I decided to just do this anyway. It is not what my plan was at all, but I do want a background for this tree. So I'm going to use the Distress Mica Stains. This is the Holly Branch color, and I believe these are pretty much not available anymore. I actually don't own any sprays at all. I used to in my mixed media days, but I don't own any anymore. And I did purchase these to just give them a go. I'm not a big fan of the fact that they did such a limited release and so many people missed out. If you haven't heard of these ones before, he did kind of a release for each season or so. But it was always going to be, once they were sold out, they were never coming back. It was done, it was done. But anyhow, I grabbed these ones and I'm going to use them, seeing as I paid for them. But I probably wouldn't do that again just because it was so limited. So I did roughly cut out that little spray that I did, and this will create the background to my tree. And then I have popped some of the liquid glue on the back there. And the good thing is that you don't have to cut out very close, because the background of the tree is actually, you can kind of cut off all those little branches, so it's not fussy cutting at all. And the mica does give it a really gorgeous kind of glow in the background as well. I do think that I also could have done some die cut inlay. That would have been fine as well, but I was just going with what I felt was the easiest option. But any trees that you have in your stash, you can make your own, cut your own, and make whatever work for you. I'm going to add on this little guy's arms, the little twigs for his arms, and then we are getting towards the end of the card. So I did decide to add 1 layer of foam to the top layer here of this little hill or snow mountain, or whatever we'd like to call it, snowdrift, and then the bottom will be just stuck on using some glue because I didn't want a whole lot of dimension. So foam up the top and glue down the bottom, and then the bottom layer here I decided to put on some foam as well. However, in a minute I'm going to put some foam on it and then do the same kind of thing. I'm going to put foam up the top and then glue down the bottom, but when I put this on it just felt too bulky, and so I didn't like it. I kind of thought about it. It didn't take me very long to decide that I had probably done the wrong thing there, and I didn't like it as much, so I was using my reverse tweezers to hold it to let that glue dry. But once I looked at it, I decided it was too much, and I thought I would keep this piece in here where I decide what I don't want. So I'm just going to rip it off. It's okay that it ripped because it is all going to be hidden and no one will be any the wiser. And I will glue this down completely nice and flat. Now I can start adding on my elements, and this is the thing that I was started to talk about earlier that I like about these trees, these tree dies, is you can see that this was kind of the stock standard size that came from the die. But the fact that it has that nice long kind of stem tree trunk going through the middle means that you can cut this tree at pretty much any stage and leave that gorgeous trunk and just kind of cut through some of those outside leaves, and you can make this tree as tall or as short as you would like it. So I cut off 1 layer here and you can still see it's got that gorgeous little tree trunk, but I thought I needed another one cut off, so I am going to make this tree even shorter. And again, if you just by looking at it, if you didn't know I had cut into it, you probably wouldn't know that this wasn't how it just came. So that's something that I looked at really closely when going ahead and purchasing these, was that I wanted to make sure I could adjust them to whatever height and whatever sized tree I needed. And obviously as they get smaller, as they got the top, it's still nicely in proportion, and to me you probably wouldn't tell. So I'm going to stick that little tree in the background there and then adjust his little arms so that you can still see both of them. And my little snowman looks, I'm pretty happy with how he came out. This is the Christmas Sparkle stamp set. Now this one I got way more than a year ago. I got this, I don't even know, I got this way before last Christmas. So I'm not sure if this one is still available, but honestly any Christmas stamps are going to go beautiful up here. I really love the font of this one. I love that they're big and clear. They take up the perfect amount of space, and I'm just going to pop in a little Merry Christmas, and this is going right onto my card base. So at this point I really want to make sure that I'm not going to muck this up, hence why I'm using my stamping platform, and I'm just going to pop my little snowman, he's not attached yet, and then stamp this in some VersaFine Onyx black ink. This is a really crisp, beautiful black, really dark stamping ink, so I would recommend this one. This is my favorite, my go-to, and I use it for everything. Then on the inside of this card, I decided to stamp the little sort of sub-sentiment, the little inside bit that says, "'Tis the season to sparkle," and I'm just going to stamp that again in the same ink on the inside. These all come in the same stamp set. There's 4 little sort of inside sentiments there that you could pop on the inside of your cards. So that is another good thing about this little stamp set. But then from here, I just pop a little piece of paper on there because pigment ink stays wet for a little bit longer, and I definitely don't want it popping onto the other side of my card just because I am too impatient to wait until it dries properly. So if I pop a little piece of paper on the inside, I'm not going to get any transfer at all. I'm popping my little snowman up on the front, and then just as a finishing touch, I'm going to add some glossy accents to his hat and make it all nice and shiny. And in a second, I will show you what it looks like when it's all nice and dried. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of my little snowman and how he ended up. I feel pretty good about him. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you can use what you have in your stash to create some gorgeous Christmas cards this year. And I will link everything down below in case you are interested. But other than that, I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!